Hello and welcome to Destination Draft Day. One of the more complicated setups. We're sorry for showing up a little bit late. We had a chaotic webcam issue. Now I'm here on my phone.
Let's just show everybody, Michael, your webcam real quick. If you're tuning in, you'll see.
Let's see if I can get this working.
Out of control, technical difficulties, but it's one of the most highly anticipated shows of the year, and that's going to be our college football preview for the season, talking about who we think is going to be the best teams and what's going to happen in the college football playoff. We did have some games this weekend, though, Michael. What did you take away from some of the early action? Usually the games are a little sloppier to start the season.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there was some sloppiness in these games. You know, you look at Illinois versus Nebraska. Illinois obviously able to pull out the big victory, which was huge for the Illini. And obviously that is tremendous for Brett Bielema and his first coaching performance for the Fighting Illini. But on the other side, Nebraska, now Scott Frost sits on a very hot seat. And if things don't turn around quickly, if Nebraska doesn't get any momentum going on early in the season, Scott Frost might not make it to the end of the year. Now, on the other hand, there were some other games as well. UConn finally got back in action despite getting smacked by Fresno State. And UCLA looked very strong on the ground. Dorian Thompson-Robinson obviously still has some work to do as a passer, but a very strong performance for the UCLA Bruins in what is something that you and I both consider a dark horse year for them to potentially go up and win the Pac-12.
Yeah, I like that. I like what Chip Kelly's doing now. I think it's clicking so far. See what happens there. Lots to be excited about if you are a Bruins fan. At the NFL level, we had some movement around here. And despite the fact that Urban Meyer said it was an open competition, it was close, Trevor Lawrence is named the starting quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And then Gardner Minshew is headed to the Philadelphia Eagles. It's a crowded QB room there in Philadelphia with him, Joe Flacco, and Jalen Hurts. Obviously, Hurts is going to start the season. We'll see if he finishes the season. What do you make of the fact that the Eagles actually did go ahead and pick up Minshew when they have Flacco as the backup?
Yeah, I think it's something that kind of shows that they're very much open to the opportunity to bring in new talent. And I think that's something that shouldn't surprise a lot of people just because it's been Howie Roseman's mantra the entire time is trying to get these QB factory type of name in Philadelphia. And, you know, Minshew has the talent to where there's enough reason to kind of bring him in and see what they can do with him. And I think Jalen Hurts is definitely who they want to be their star QB, who they want to be the face of their franchise. But at the same time, he hasn't proven enough to where you are 100% bought in my opinion.
Yeah, and what's interesting about the Eagles last year, we all know how the season kind of ended, where the Eagles they had to kind of win a game to enable maybe the Giants make the playoffs, and they're like, oh, we're going to pull Hurts to get a look at, and the quarterback's name is escaping me right now. That was kind of wild, and that guy's not even on the roster. I totally forget who that player is, but obviously he was nothing too special there in that sense. But yeah, the Eagles, who knows what Howie Roseman's trying to do here. Right now, the Eagles fans, it's kind of leaving a lot to be desired, and it's disappointing for a lot of Eagles fans. But look, this team, they went so long without winning a Super Bowl. They got the Super Bowl, and they could be worse off. Other teams to note here is a bit of a COVID outbreak with the Colts, so we'll see what happens there. Quentin Nelson returned from COVID, but now Carson Wentz, amongst others, has COVID. Dobbins with the Ravens, torn ACL. He's going to be out for the season. And I was all talking, they got to bring in Todd Gurley. I don't know, Michael. I think Todd Gurley is done And I'm not really sure how much of an upgrade he'd be over Gus Edwards or anybody else at this point.
Yeah, I think if I had to make my prediction, I'd probably go with Mark Ingram out of the Texans. I think the Ravens could swing a low-value round pick to get Ingram back, someone familiar with the system, and really allow for them to have a pretty split backfield between Ingram and Edwards. And I think the Texans themselves, they're just more so looking to collect capital. They have Philip Lindsay, David Johnson, Rex Burkhead, so they aren't needing to hold on to these aging veteran running backs. And I think for a team like the Ravens, where they could definitely use that experience, it'd be huge for both sides.
Yeah, and I think if you're going to perhaps sign a veteran running back, maybe you look to somebody who had a pretty solid year with the Lions last year. And that would be Adrian Peterson, who had 604 rushing yards and 7 touchdowns in 156 attempts. Seems like Peterson still wants to play. Hearing some very minor rumors out there about the Jaguars might have some interest, and perhaps the Falcons. We'll see. I think ultimately somebody's going to sign Peterson again this year. Coming off the really high quality season he had last year, how could you not consider him?
Yeah, AP just seems to be the new Frank Gore, where he's just always able to contribute in some form or fashion. And, if the Ravens bring him in, I couldn't say it'd be a bad move.
And the other move that happened today, actually, was that the Giants made a trade. The Giants traded with the Bengals. They traded B.J. Hill, pass rusher, to the Bengals for center Billy Price. I've been saying on the show for months the Giants did not fix their offensive line issues. They got rid of their best offensive lineman in Zeitler, didn't replace him. And maybe after the preseason, they kind of noticed that, hey, maybe we need to get some better protection in here. But yeah, the offensive line is going to be a big talking point with this Giants team this whole season.
Yeah, I wasn't able to watch the entire Patriots-Giants preseason game, but from the large chunk that I was able to watch in the beginning where Daniel Jones was getting all the reps, it just seems like the same issues as before. Too many forced turnovers, inability to read off of his blocks, inability to make the quick decisions when evaluating coverage. And in turn, those turnovers build up. While Andrew Thomas and Matt Parrott had their issues, I think there's still a big question mark for what Daniel Jones is able to do for himself. And it's going to lead some issues for the Giants this season on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, it's not going to be pretty. And, you have a quarterback coming off injury, you have a running back coming off injury. Gotta let those guys hold up. Lastly here, it seems that Le'Veon Bell is really desperate to get back in the league here. I don't know if anyone's going to sign him. In hindsight, I guess he shouldn't have held out the whole season with the Steelers, but he's 29 years old and looks like there's very minimal interest in him. He didn't do much with the Chiefs at all last year when he went there from the Jets. With the Jets, he was just a disaster, but a lot of that's on the Jets. Le'Veon Bell, Michael, do you think we see him playing at all this year?
It's tough to say. I think Le'Veon has some talent still left in the tank, but at the same time, there are so many options out there that are kind of more intriguing just because of the question mark about it. Whereas we've seen a lot of issues for Le'Veon Bell to really get going, especially in great situations. While maybe the Jets weren't a great situation, and I think no one would argue that. I think you look at, a situation like Kansas City where a lot of people thought, oh, if he has anything left in the tank, then the Chiefs are going to absolutely demolish on the ground. And he just never really got going.
Right. Speaking of 14, the Jets, Zach Wilson has been tremendous. The fans are really buying in after in the training camp, they say he's a bust. People are being crazy, saying, oh, he's better than Trevor Lawrence. Listen, I think I've been really high on Zach Wilson for over a year. Wish he could have been a Giant, but he's going to be tremendous. But Jets fans need to temper their expectations of him in year one. I think he will have a good year, but that should not be indicative of the Jets' record. I think the Jets are going to struggle. I think at best they're looking at 5 wins this year. Their division is very tough. We know what Brian Flores and the Dolphins have done. We know the Bills are one of the best teams in football. And the Patriots, Michael, as you know, their defense is back. It is going to be really, really tough to put points up on them. I think the offense is going to be greatly improved with the 2 tight ends, the running game. So much so that they trade Sony Michel. They don't even need him to get a 6th-round pick for him. We'll see what happens when Mac Jones takes over this season. But as a Patriots fan, I think you got to feel a lot, better going into this season than you did last year.
Oh, absolutely. The weapons are better. I think the run game is going to be very established with Damian Harris. Ramondre Stevenson and J.J. Taylor have proven themselves pretty well in preseason as well to kind of fill that question mark of what's going to happen now that Sony Michel's off in L.A. And whether it's Cam Newton or Mac Jones, I think the opportunity for success is much better for both quarterbacks to really have an opportunity to shine. And I look forward to seeing what it is. A lot of rookie success comes down to just having a good situation surrounding them, and it's hard to find much better than New England.
No doubt about it. And, last night we see Sunday Night Football with the Browns. We'll see a lot of the Browns this year. The Browns, and we'll do a little NFL preview next week, but I think the Browns are going to be right there all season as far as record is concerned with the Chiefs. And I think everybody in that locker room believes they can beat the Chiefs. Wouldn't surprise me if they do beat the Chiefs in the playoffs. Mayfield, we'll see if they get an extension done with him. But overall, you look up and down this team, and there's no holes with the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, absolutely. And they added Malik McDowell, who has really proven to be a stud so far in the preseason, a former 2nd-round pick that had gobs of potential, really had to step away from the NFL for a while due to off-field issues, whether it was issues running in with, just personal issues or just stuff that, would get him suspended. But now it seems like he has a clear head on his shoulders. Seems like he's kind of gotten everything figured out. And as a player, the talent wasn't really a question mark for me. And I'm excited to see what he does with Cleveland, especially with such a great situation around him.
No doubt about it. And this could be the last year with Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry. A lot of money in those guys. So we'll see how they do this year. I think the whole narrative of the Browns are better without Odell is kind of crazy. The Browns, we know, are built around the run, but you say it all the time and people get annoyed, but you run to set up the pass, and if everyone's ready for the run and you hit Odell wide open, it's going to be bad news for the defense because he's going to turn it. We do have a comment here, little fantasy question here for you, Michael. Kevin D wants to know if he should start Jerry Jeudy, Michael Gallup, or Jamar Chase week 1. I've seen Jamar Chase getting a lot of hate recently on social media. A lot of people are worried about him. I wouldn't be too worried about him because I think ultimately Burrow's going to look for him a lot just because the last time I played together, they were winning a national championship. But your thoughts on these 3 guys? I would probably start Gallup or Chase, but your thoughts on these guys and in general, specifically your thoughts on Chase coming into his rookie year.
Yeah, I think it's tough because I would probably leave Gallup off here just because I think with the Tampa Bay Bucs defense, there's going to be some issues in terms of just finding that opportunity. But at the same time, I expect Dallas Cowboys offense to really be firing away, and that could result in some big moments. I think personally for me, I'm probably looking at Jerry Jeudy. I think Bradbury's going to be lined up on Cortland Sutton. And in turn, a lot of the wide open targets are going to go to Jerry Jeudy, Tim Patrick, guys like that. And I think this is a great opportunity for both Jeudy and Bridgewater to sort of establish himself in this offense. And the Giants are kind of lacking at that cornerback 2 spot. So I think it's a great opportunity for both, just matchup and just overall narrative. And I think that's why I lean Jerry Jeudy of these 3 for week 1.
So I know you're very high on the Broncos. They do name Teddy Bridgewater the starting quarterback. What do you think is the ceiling for the Broncos with Teddy Bridgewater as their quarterback?
Yeah, I think this situation's actually pretty interesting because a lot of offseason we were saying, look, they're going to go with Drew Lock because if you go away from Drew Lock, then it's almost like you're calling him a failure to the franchise, and you're kind of forcing your hand next offseason to get your new QB. But I've kind of reevaluated it now, and I'm kind of thinking maybe benching Drew Lock early is a good move, because it sort of opens this door of, well, can you earn it back? And from there, we'll see what happens. Because if he starts right away, every single game, you're saying, okay, when does Bridgewater start? When does he lose this job? But if he is able to earn that job back, then maybe it's a nice, wake-up call for him, and he's able to really kind of get the thing situated. Because talent, pure talent, has never been an issue for Drew Lock. It's just trying to really get that talent into a molded, polished game to where he can be that franchise QB. Now, will Drew Lock be the franchise quarterback for Denver? I don't think so. Personal evaluation, I don't think he's going to be that guy. But I think this situation is going to be better for Lock than if he were to start out the season, just because of the way he's handled it and the way the Broncos are set up. Personally, though, for what's going on right now, focusing in on the Broncos themselves, the big thing is if the QB can stay out of the way, then I absolutely think they are a playoff contender. And I think Bridgewater can do that. I think he can handle it, do a nice 15 for 25 each game, 160 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 touchdowns, maybe 1 interception most. And I think that's kind of what the Broncos need, establish a run, really rely on Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams, quick passing with guys like Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant. And then, it's really just kind of lob up passing with Sutton. And with his body control, I really do think that this team is set up for success. And it really all falls down on Bridgewater, and I think it's going to go well.
Now to college. So, we just gave you the big news, which was that, we'll stick to NFL one more time here. Kevin D really coming to us for the fantasy advice here. He's got Kyler Murray and Jonathan Taylor for his quarterback and running back, which I think is great. Austin Eckler, Najee Harris, Donald Jones, Hines Stevens, Trey Sermon, wide receiver now Robinson, Jerry Jeudy, Marvin Jones, defense the Rams, kicker Rodrigo. You got a good kicker, you got a good quarterback, you got a good running back. I think you need some help there, wide receiver, tight end. But best of luck to you this season, Kevin D.
I like the team. I think if you can figure out wide receiver 2, then you are definitely looking to contend.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I think Murray could be really good this year, potentially MVP. Now at college, Michael, obviously the big news was that Texas and Oklahoma, they're going to the SEC. So, tough luck, Big 12. You're basically done. And now we know they're really done because the Big 10, the ACC, and the Pac-12 come together to form the Alliance. So what does this mean? Well, at this point, it doesn't mean that much, Michael. The schedule alliance will begin as soon as practical while honoring current contractual obligations. So if you look at all these divisions contracts, you're looking at 2032, most likely, for this to begin. So who knows what college football is going to look like then. So 2 takeaways really here is the Big 12, you're out of luck. And number 2 takeaway is everybody wants to get together here to kind of compete with the SEC and stay strong. So your thoughts on this alliance that came together?
Yeah, this is a strange alliance because it didn't really seem to tell us anything. There was sort of an agreement that they would schedule each other, and that's great. But this is, 10 years down the road almost. It just seems as though this is a desperate attempt to kind of avoid being eaten up by the SEC machine. But it's hard to see how, a school like Clemson, let's say the SEC comes knocking, how this alliance is really going to hold them there. If they're loyal to the ACC, whatever, but it's not going to be because the ACC made this alliance with the Big Ten, made this alliance with the Pac-12, where really it just has little to no influence on it. And then, we still see where USC is making this agreement with LSU, who's in the SEC, for a scheduled matchup. So it just seemed like a desperate attempt to kind of establish themselves as, hey, we're still power conferences. Don't get all the attention to the SEC. We're very much relevant. And, they are. I think all 3 of these conferences are still going to survive, but I think it was just more of an attempt to kind of keep the attention on all of the conferences rather than just the SEC.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Like you said, really nothing really came of it, and we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm looking forward, Michael, to seeing how the conferences shake out this year, because it's probably the last year we'll have the traditional Power Five and who's gonna win what in the typical rivalries.
Absolutely. And, speaking on that as well, a lot of these conferences are looking into expansion as well. Pac-12 decided that they wouldn't. I think it's bad move on their end. Just so much opportunity for talented schools that could be brought in, and they are passing on that opportunity to really strengthen their conference. And I think it's something that desperately needs to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the Pac-12 is a total afterthought. Because most people aren't watching their games at 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., depending on where you are. Quite frankly, they haven't had a powerhouse team since Chip Kelly left Oregon and Andrew Luck was at Stanford. So there's not much jazz coming out of the West Coast, and they have a chance to take some of these second-tier schools in the Big 12 and take some of these independents, and they don't want it. I'm not really sure why that's the case, but I don't think that helps them at all, Michael.
Yeah, I think it's something that if they want to stay in this picture and not kind of fall down a tier, and there's an argument that could be made that they already are sort of under the rest of the big conferences, then they need to expand. And I expect the Big Ten and the ACC will look to add some of these schools that are now kind of being left over by the Big 12 if it does disband. And I think the Pac-12 needs to get in on that while they can.
Yeah, I think it's overdue to get like Boise State in the Pac-12. I mean, how many times are they going to beat up on Pac-12 teams? And there's other schools there, but as well. But yeah, I think ultimately the Big Ten is going to have their choice or whatever school they want to have join their conference.
Absolutely. And real quick, before we dive into the whole college football prediction, last episode talked about the corners, but we missed the opportunity to talk about safeties just due to technical difficulties. Real quick, just want to run through these guys. For potential risers in this class, I'm looking at Nick Cross out of Maryland, Xavier Henderson out of Michigan State, Landon Zanders out of Clemson, Ishim Young out of Iowa State, and AJ Finley out of Ole Miss. All these guys offer, a different set of skills. I think Zanders and Henderson are more the strong safety type. Ishim Young and Cross can really play all over. Finley's very young, nice size, and I think he's a free safety type. All five of these guys are really enticing prospects and guys that haven't gotten a lot of attention when it comes to where they should be at in these safety rankings. Pay attention to them. And the top 10 going into the season as this class starts. Number 10, we got Isaiah Polamau. At number 9, we got Jalen Petrie. At number 8, we got Lewis Sine. At number 7, we got Smoke Monday out of Auburn. At number 6, we got Daxton Hill out of Michigan. Number 5, we got Jordan Battle out of Alabama. Number 4, Ishim Young out of Iowa State. Number 3, Brandon Joseph out of Northwestern. Number 2, Nick Cross out of Maryland. And number 1, Kyle Hamilton out of Notre Dame. This is a very fun safety class. So many years we've kind of had a limited pool in the safety area. This is a great class. Free safety, strong safety, money backers, guys that can do it all. It's filled in this class, and this is a great opportunity for your team to really kind of establish itself in the safety department. Personally, I'm a Patriots fan. Devin McCourty's years are coming down to their final ones. Whether it's this year or next year, Devin McCourty is probably going to be retiring soon. The Patriots will look to replace him at free safety. If you are celebrating a team that has a similar situation, needs an immediate free safety, needs one down the road, this is the class to get excited about. These are some studs, and there is such a great opportunity for success from this class.
Yeah, Michael. Let's also keep in mind here that with Greg Schiano building Rutgers, there'll be plenty of Rutgers Scarlet Knights playing for the Patriots the next few years, especially in the secondary. Bill Belichick loves the guys that Greg Schiano puts together for him on defense.
Oh, absolutely. I'm expecting in about 2 or 3 years, Patriots are just going to have, consistent Rutgers pipeline, 2 or 3 guys every year coming to the team from the Scarlet Knights.
It's worked before, so if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Absolutely. And, some of these great safeties are going to be playing part in some great programs, and those programs are going to be playing part in some wonderful football this year. Me and Nick dove in, made some deep predictions. We're going to talk about our conference winners for the major conferences, the top school from the G5 and Independence, and then we're going to show you guys our playoff bracket and our champion for the season. So, Nick, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away. Going to pull it all up here. So spoilers, if you don't want to be spoiled and just want to listen, close your eyes.
Close your eyes.
Here. But here you are.
All right, Michael. So we're doing this exercise, picking these teams, and it was not easy. It definitely was not easy to do. So I'll just do my conference winners here first. I like Clemson. They're going to go undefeated. I do think UNC is going to have a tremendous year. But they're not going to be able to compete with Clemson. The Big Ten, I hate to do it, but how do you not pick Ohio State? I'd love to see Michigan finally beat them this year. They're not playing Wisconsin from what I saw, so that's good for them. And that's going to help them unless they play them in the championship game. I think Wisconsin's good in the Big Ten, but Ohio State, there's really not many threats there. The Big 12 will go Oklahoma. They have a lot of buzz around them here. I don't know if they go undefeated. They're definitely going to win the conference. If last year taught us anything, it's that even if they have a bad start, you can't count them out. They're going to be there at the end. Pac-12, I mentioned them earlier on the show. I like what I saw from UCLA. And I love to pick Arizona State again, but I think there's too much controversy with them off the field. So for me, I had to go with UCLA. I don't like anything I've seen out of USC. I think the consensus pick, other than you and I, is probably picking Utah. I think Utah is great, but I'm trying to be a little different here. We'll remember here that once upon a time, Chip Kelly was the Pac-12, so we'll see if things get back there. SEC, this was an easy one, but I do think Texas A&M has enough this year where they can beat Alabama. So I am picking Texas A&M to win the SEC, but that's okay, Alabama fans, as you'll see later on. We discussed the playoff brackets and the G5 independents. Notre Dame, I think if they could beat Wisconsin, they're going to go undefeated. If not, they'll have one loss. And ultimately, what it comes down to there is just going to be, can they go undefeated? Because if so, they'll make the playoffs. They always do if they're undefeated. And then just what's going around the rest of the country. I think, Michael, this year, we have a legitimate shot that we're going to see 4 undefeated teams in the college football playoff. But that's my conference winners there. The playoff bracket there on the screen on my side is incorrect, but we'll get to that momentarily. I do not have Oklahoma there by Ohio State. So your thoughts, Michael, on my conference winners?
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. Obviously, you can look over and see that there's a little bit of difference for us, but ultimately, I think there's going to be similar winners. We both are going out on a limb a little bit with the prediction of UCLA winning the Pac-12, but at the same time, I think that there is just a great opportunity for them to really kind of make some noise in the Pac-12. Not big believer in Oregon this year or USC. I think that's probably the favorite to win it. You kind of look around at some of my other picks. Clemson in the ACC, I think they just have so much talent. Uiagalelei is someone that I think is going to, really step forward and have a great year. The defense, I think, is completely established now, and it's going to result in a very strong Clemson team. Ohio State, Alabama, new quarterbacks, but still so much talent on the surrounding roster. Oklahoma fielding one of the better teams that they've had in years, and I think this is their best chance under Lincoln Riley to be a legitimate championship winner. And then, in the independents, I'm going with Cincinnati. I think the overall defensive talent that they have on that roster is just going to lead them to some big things this year. And because of that, I think Cincinnati is going to be the top team outside of the Power 5 conferences.
It's interesting here, and I'll just explain my playoff bracket a little more. You get the 2 SEC teams. The reason I say that is I just think that a one-loss Alabama team would be more likely to get in than the Big 12 champ or the Pac-12 champion. I don't think UCLA is going undefeated. What would be really interesting is if Oklahoma goes undefeated, and they have Alabama with a one loss. Based on strength of schedule, Alabama would be the better team, but then it's kind of like messed up. Like, oh, you're really not going to reward a team for going undefeated. So it's going to be interesting there. We've seen this scenario before where the one-loss Alabama gets in to the playoff over another conference winner. And I just, if Notre Dame does go undefeated, it's really going to merkle things there because they'll be in. Clemson, if they're undefeated, is going to be in. Ohio State, if they're undefeated, is going to be in. And it's kind of like, well, if Oklahoma goes undefeated and somebody from the SEC goes undefeated, what do you do? I think the SEC team would get in over Oklahoma at that point, and that'd be it for the Big 12 ever trying to win a championship, because it's not going to happen. If it's not going to happen this year with Oklahoma or Texas, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's so much talent out there in college football that really a lot of these teams run into that risk of beating up on each other. Ohio State probably has the clearest path to the college football playoff just because the Big Ten doesn't seem to pose the same type of threat that, ACC has North Carolina that can challenge Clemson. Big 12 has Iowa State and Texas that you can never count out. Iowa State obviously beat Oklahoma last year in the regular season matchup, lost in the conference championship. We could see some similar results from that because Iowa State's going to be a very difficult team to beat twice if Oklahoma has that type of fate. In the Pac-12, while we're picking UCLA, that doesn't mean that USC, Oregon, all these schools could very easily beat up on each other and really take out the Pac-12 from the playoff picture. In the SEC, Alabama is always going to be a contender, but also don't sleep on teams like Texas A&M, teams like LSU to potentially bounce back. And then other schools, such as Florida and other opportunities for Auburn and many others alike that could really just surprise any week. And then, the independents, G5 type schools always have a difficult time getting in. So there's not a lot of clear paths to the playoffs. And, I think we're going to see a lot of chaos this year in college football with just so many teams that really get this full opportunity for a full season. And with so many guys that are returning, we're going to see some major games that really just blow up and create some chaos in the rankings. But ultimately, I think that's why I went a little safe with my playoff prediction and kind of predicted the ordinary four is what I'll call it to prevail and make it this playoff field.
Ordinary four. Yeah, I think, basically every year, if you wanted to just pencil in Ohio State, Clemson, Alabama, and Oklahoma as your four, you're going to nail 3 out of those 4 guaranteed every year. It just, every few years, you can guarantee, you can bet on Notre Dame getting in. Like I said, Notre Dame goes undefeated. They're always going to be in there. And then every, 3 or 4 years, there's going to be another SEC team that rises up, a la LSU, an Auburn or something like that, that will come through. They'll have one great year. They'll win the championship, and they're going to be knocked down a peg. And I just think if anybody in the SEC is going to do it this year, it's going to be Texas A&M. And the reason I'm confident picking them is because I think, Alabama going back-to-back would be very tough.
Yeah, and I think, we talk about the SEC. We talk about some of these teams having a very tough path. Clemson has to play Georgia week 1, and that is not going to be easy, especially for a young team that, lost a lot of talent to, the transfer portal, to the NFL draft. And that's going to make Clemson really either establish themselves as a top dog for the season or show off some potential weaknesses that could linger on as the season goes along. And if Georgia's able to pull off that week 1 win, then they become an instant favorite to potentially make the playoffs. So don't sleep on any of these programs in college football, especially some of these bigger programs that have been kind of waiting in the wings for this opportunity to really attack, because this is the year to do it with all the change that's happening, especially at the most important spot, quarterback.
Speaking of quarterback, Texas A&M named Haynes King as their quarterback. I don't know if there's really not much out there on him, but just interested your thoughts on him as at the quarterback position.
Yeah, he's a quick, mobile type guy, going to be able to really make some plays with his feet, going to roll out, make some passes that are going to be impressive. I think that the potential is there for Haynes King to be that guy that is able to carry what Texas A&M needs, but at the same time, that youth is going to really prevail, and there's not a lot that we've been able to see from him. So what happens here for Haynes King is going to be crucial for the Aggie season. If he is able to step up and really do his job and be a star or just be very good, then Texas A&M is as much of a contender as anyone.
All right, so that's the teams we think are going to be good, but Samantha here is loving our takes, so that's great. Great, thank you, Samantha, for watching. Appreciate it. Michael, it's all about the talent though on the field. A lot of great coaches here, but we got to talk about Heisman Trophy. Interested to hear from you. I think I know which way you're going here, especially based on who you got in the finals for the national championship. But who is your Heisman favorite for this season?
Yeah, I think right now the Heisman favorite for me has to be Spencer Rattler. Just the opportunity to really succeed in a Lincoln Riley offense, I think, is going to set him up well. But you kind of look around at the rest of the league, and I think all these QBs are in a great situation. CJ Stroud going against a easier Big Ten than usual with two of the greatest wide receivers in college football could easily propel him up into the conversation. Bryce Young is going to really be relied on for this Alabama offense to succeed because the run game hasn't necessarily been established, with Najee Harris being a bell cow for the Crimson Tide. And that kind of opens up the door for Bryce Young to really be the focal point of what is already one of the most dominant programs in college football history. And then, we talked about DJ Uiagalelei is a stud. He's put up some great 400-yard performances in Trevor Lawrence's absence last year. So we could very easily see one of these QBs do it. Personally, I'm between CJ Stroud and Spencer Rattler, and I'm going to go with the guy that I've seen become the best player in college football over the back half of last year, and that's Spencer Rattler.
All right, very good. He is the favorite at this point. And again, every year we see it, somebody comes out of the blue to kind of be the Heisman Trophy winner. We saw it the last 2 years. I'm going to go a little bit off the grid here. This guy's a great prospect, as you can tell everybody, but I think Sam Howell is going to win the Heisman Trophy. I think UNC is going to have a tremendous year. I believe they will be undefeated going into the ACC championship game, where they will lose to Clemson. Looking at their schedule, they got to play Florida State, but that's at home. They have to play Miami, but that is at home. So that's a big break there for ACC schedule. Maybe they won't be undefeated, though, but you have to play Notre Dame at Notre Dame. So that could be, that's a pretty rough game there. But I think this team's going to be having a good year record-wise, and I think it's going to be led due to his quarterback play. I think he's going to get a lot of buzz, and kind of reminds me of the last time that Mac Jones had a quarterback who won the Heisman, and Vince Young, in the sense that he's getting a lot of buzz before it's going to be his last year. There's some other big contenders out there. In that year, it was Leinart and Reggie Bush. They're going to win the Heisman, and he kind of came in. He didn't win the Heisman, Vince Young. Well, obviously, Reggie Bush won, but he had a tremendous year. And I think Sam Howell's a great shot to win the Heisman this year.
Yeah, I think Howell's talent is never to be understated. With all the weapons that are leaving North Carolina, he has a huge chance to really put the team on his shoulders and could be rewarded for that. Just on a pure talent basis, like just raw natural ability, I'm gonna give a shout out to someone who was announced as starter today for the Tennessee Volunteers, Joe Milton. And he was at Michigan. Too many issues with inconsistency, but pure size, ability to throw the ball downfield with ease, great mobility. If Joe Milton is able to put it all together, this is something that we could very easily talk about as a potential first-round quarterback, as a potential Heisman contender. The ceiling is unlimited for a guy like Milton if he's able to put it together. But, we'll see what happens.
No doubt about it. And speaking of other people who transferred and, you kind of forgot about, JT Daniels is going to start for the Georgia Bulldogs, as you mentioned Georgia before. He had a lot of hype at USC because as a freshman, he started in 2018. He had 2,600 and something passing yards, 4 touchdowns. I don't think this guy's like a pro prospect, Michael. I think kind of saw what he is at USC, but he was very highly touted coming into college. And we'll see what happens with Georgia here, but it's not really a place where the offense is intuitive to get somebody to, be a big time draft prospect at the quarterback position.
Yeah, I think for JT Daniels last year, from what I saw, I wasn't a huge fan of his jump to the potential NFL draft type of situation. But at the same time, he was coming off of an injury, and there's still a lot that could be recovered in that time. And maybe, with a full offseason of healing up, a full opportunity to kind of get things going again, we could see some more natural arm talent pop out. And we can see some major strides both for him and for this Georgia offense. There's a lot of speed at this wide receiver room. Even with George Pickens out for the season, I think there's still plenty of weapons and opportunity. And there's no shortage of running back talent. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with JT Daniels. I think he's a huge piece of this Georgia's offense and Georgia's success for this season. But I think the talent surrounding that roster really makes them enticing for anyone looking to, pick someone outside of Alabama to win the SEC this year.
All right, there you have it. We gave you the Heismans. We gave you the national champions. And then, Michael, right now, who is going to be the first pick in the NFL draft? And what team is going to be making that pick?
I'm going to be boring. I'm going to say Houston Texans will be picking first, and they will pick Spencer Rattler. Just right now, the Texans just don't have any clarity on what their roster is going to look like, who's going to be a QB, and the talent surrounding that QB is still going to be struggling. So even if Watson gets cleared and they say, you know what, he can start week 1, he's all good, and, play the rest of the year, and he says, look, I'm happy to be a Texan, I can't wait to get going, the team's going to be bad. There's just not talent on this roster. Like, there's some young talent. There's some bright spots, but this team overall is bad, and they won't have the first pick if Watson plays all 16, but they will still be a bottom 10 squad. And, without Watson, it just goes even further downhill. Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills, whoever's a QB, it's going to be a rough situation. So Texans number 1 pick, feel kind of confident in that. And then the pick right now I'm going with is Spencer Rattler out of Oklahoma.
Tony Paradise wants to know what we think is going to happen with Watson this year. Well, as of now, Michael, the NFL hasn't said anything. I really need to step in here. They're going to have to make some sort of announcement this week. I mean, Texans got a game plan here for week 1 with Tyrod Taylor and figure everything out. But I think Watson's going to be on some sort of indefinite commissioner's list leave. Let's call it that. And if we see him cleared to play, probably looking at November. Let's just say they clear him in October. He's got to have to come in. He's going to have to practice. He's not going to start right away. So if anything, Michael, I'm going to guess we see Deshaun Watson in November.
Yeah, I really have no idea what to make of the situation. I think we probably won't see him this year, both in the mix of what's happening off field and just him not wanting to play for the Texans. I'm going to assume that we just do not see Deshaun Watson this year at all. Whether or not that means his suspension gets served this year is really up in the air, because the NFL probably should have had some sort of decision made on the situation already. And it leaves it all such a question mark and such a bundle of confusion because, if Watson were planning on playing, if there weren't this personal issue with the Texans right now, then the Texans would be furious because why don't we have a decision on our hopeful starting QB? But because Watson doesn't really seem to be intent on playing if he does get cleared, it now just creates sort of a window of leeway for the NFL to really not have to decide yet. But I'm just kind of going in with the expectation we will not see Deshaun Watson this year.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the way you got to go at this point. Because what else is really, there's no other information out there. All right, Michael, we got some Wednesday night and some Thursday night college football this week. So what game are you looking forward to? Me. I gotta keep an eye on Rutgers and Temple Thursday night. I think Rutgers is gonna have a good year. Wagner College taking on Buffalo. They're gonna get spanked, but that'll be an interesting game because Wagner is by me. What are you looking for? I know the big debut is probably the Utah's playing Weber State, but Thursday is a big game right out the gate in the Big Ten with Ohio State and Minnesota.
Yeah, I think that's where my eyes really focus on. Want to see CJ Stroud really kind of prove himself. And Minnesota's a good defense to do it against. So really a great Thursday night game to start off what is sort of week 1 of college football. They kind of referenced last weekend as week 0. Confusing, but, try not to think too much of it. I talked about Joe Milton earlier. Definitely want to see how he does against Bowling Green. And then, there's some other great games. Central Florida versus Boise State have some great players on their roster that really could be interesting NFL prospects when the time comes. And, I think if you're looking for a enjoyable Thursday night of college football, then you're absolutely getting it.
Yep, and we'll be back on Friday. Got a lot of games Friday night we could discuss, and of course we'll have the whole weekend to the true opening Saturday of the college football season. Michael will be glued to his couch and television throughout Saturday.
Absolutely. And, we want to thank everyone in the comment section for all things NFL, NFL draft, college football, and all of it beyond. We're here to cover it all, and we are looking forward to this season. We're getting closer and closer to the NFL. We're already in the window of college football. We can't be happier about it. We are so thrilled, and we look forward to talking about it twice a week with you guys, Monday and Friday here on the Chris Landry Football Twitch channel, YouTube channel, or Facebook page. Go ahead and give us a like and subscribe down below, and we will see you guys on Friday. Take care.